Good morning and welcome to A Better World with Julann and Fran. I'm Julann.
And I'm Fran, and our guest today is James Haynes, certified hypnotherapist and other things too. James, welcome.
Welcome.
And and would
Yes.
you would you talk a little bit about what it is that you're doing to make the world a better place?
Well, like I said, I'm James and I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and I base my hypnotherapy around shadow work. And it basically helps people to stop running from their inner chaos and finally make friends with it, I guess. And I specialize in like deep subconscious work and emotional release and the kind of inner transformations that make people say, I didn't know I needed that anyway. Basically, it's a blend of Ericksonian hypnotherapy and Jungian shadow work and trauma-informed approach, and with just enough humor to remind people that they're still human and not floating off into the astral plane. My whole mission is simple. It's just to help people understand the parts of themselves they've been avoiding so they can actually live with a little bit of clarity and confidence and a little more inner peace.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. You
Mhm.
mentioned shadow work. Do you know why it's called shadow work?
I follow Carl Jung, which the Jungian psychology. I started off with Freud, like which is mainstream, but Carl Jung was big into shadow work, and the shadow just means unintegrated painful emotions, basically that kind of we call it shadows. And once we learn to sit down and see these shadows, they actually a lot of times we end up laughing at them. They're what's running the stuff in the background. It's just a deeper description of hypnotherapy, in my opinion, of what we're doing.
It sounds like a lot of the shadow work is what we in at HMI were taught to call the life script, the way that we
Yes.
when we're so young, when we're like firstborn until about the age of 6, we take in the positives and the negatives and we
Mhm.
form a script from that. And then we live from that script the rest of our lives unless we come to recognize it and make those changes.
Yes, that's a theory of mine. As we say, I'm an HMI graduate as well. So, yeah, I recognize what you're talking about. Yeah, I help people make peace with the parts of themselves they've been running from since maybe middle school, or you think of it as like an emotional spelunking with a flashlight and a map and hypnotherapy instead of caves and bats, I guess. But my program actually mixes psychology and spirituality and deep subconscious work so people can just stop fighting themselves all the time. Uh, shadow work matters because the shadow is basically all the stuff you pretend isn't yours. You know your triggers and your insecurities and your jealous streak and your I'm totally fine moments, but when you ignore it, it secretly runs your life like a tiny chaotic CEO. When in fact, if you get more confident and less emotional chaos and the ability to stop repeating the same patterns you swear by, then you're pretty much done with it. Uh, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And how long have you been doing this?
I think somewhere inside of me, I've been doing this since I was born. I just didn't know what I was doing. But there's an interesting backstory to how I got here. A former military, and I ended up getting a medical discharge. They diagnosed me with PTSD, bipolar mania, general anxiety disorder. I had the whole list, like literally, it's the whole list. But what I figured out along the way after about 20 years of trying different therapies and different medicines, and every time you do something, you're just trading it for something else. Then it began to make sense once I actually, as just kind of a last ditch effort, I'm like, I'm going to try this hypnotherapy. So I've always wanted to do it. I've got nothing to lose at this point. And I went to a hypnotherapist, and after the second session, I called him back and I said, listen, I don't think this is working, and this is I don't feel like anything happened. And she said, well, what did you come in for? And I said, well, anxiety. And she said, are you experiencing anxiety? And I said, and I had to think for just a second, which was unusual because I was somebody who lived off of it 24 hours a day. I would stay awake for days at a time. I'm like, you know what? I've been sleeping fine. But that's how hypnotherapy works. Right. So ever since that happened, I had to figure it out. I started, and I was on my own from Mississippi. This stuff is, it doesn't exist here. Right, right. It's from the devil. But yeah, I wanted to find out everything about hypnotherapy, so I did all of my own research and and I had a weird thing that happened, and this is where the spiritual part comes in. I had just an emotional breakdown out of nowhere, and I kind of looked up, and this yellow light just I just seen it like right up here is like a warm yellow light, and a voice came out of it and said, "You're gonna be fine now." And I wanted to know what happened because that doesn't happen in Mississippi. 20 years ago, given there's no yoga, there's nothing like that. That's something women and hippies do, right? But I wanted to find out what happened, and the closest thing I found was Reiki, with the golden light, and so I started studying that, and I learned a good deal of it on my own, and I didn't understand side effects of emotional detoxes and things, so I just wanted to jump straight into doing this stuff, and there was a lot of bad side effects. So, that would get better, then would get worse. It would get better. Of course, I'm still going through the bipolar and all of this stuff, and so it would get better and it would get worse. And I got into meditation, because the movies, everybody meditates, they find peace. Well, nobody tells you waking up is rough, especially when you have a lot of damage. And so it would get blissful, then it would get terrifying. And I actually learned to do Kundalini on my own, and that caused a psychosis that lasted about a year before I understood what had happened to me then. And this is leading up to when I finally did the hypnosis session. And then I started, when I went, I tried to get in a lot of places, but HMI was the only one offering a grant. It wasn't even on my list. Like everybody else is doing this in 6 months. Why do I need a year? This is a shout out to HMI for that. But they actually did a Pell grant, and that's how I ended up there. And it was the day of enrollment, like the last day you could do it, that day that it went through. I'm like, all right, well, it was the last one I could get into, and I got in. So from that point forward, it's just been complete understanding now that it's a lifestyle, and once you're in, you can't go back, and if you could, you wouldn't, right? So that's kind of how I got to where I am. HMI introduced me to the imagery, with Cheryl. Of course, she's the best, and it's very similar to shadow work. The imagery stuff. It's almost so close that it's very minute differences. But that's just how the way she does it is how shadow work works for the most part. Put it that way. Uh, and well, I mean, do you have any further questions? As far as this far?
Well, thank you for your service.
I
Yes, thank you very
Appreciate it.
much.
And how nice is it that you found something that helped you through it, even though it took a while and you weren't sure what was going. It it worked from the second session. You know, that's amazing. And your story has to help you. I don't want to say convince, but I know some people, especially where you are, they think it's voodoo and they don't want to have anything to do with it. But the fact that you're honest and you're sharing your own journey, I think that must help you so much and allow you to help so many other people.
Well, what it's did is it gave me a real understanding that, and I'm not a licensed psychologist. We can't say this, but
Right.
everything is the same thing. We say something is, I mean, nothing is still something in hypnotherapy. If you see nothing, you're seeing something, right? There's still something. So, uh, yeah, when I now that I'm able to objectively see the bipolar and all this, I understood what happened. Some people are emotionally deep naturally, and when you go through, when you go through high speed places where you don't have time to feel emotions and things like that, you shut them down, put them in the back, whatever you got to do. But what you start doing is you start trading emotions out, right? So like in hypnotherapy we do this in a positive way, but when you do it on your own, you do it in a destructive way. So you start trading these in order to survive in like overseas. I was a 9/11 deployed person, so I went straight in. Like my straight in was 9/11, so I went straight in. Uh, and what happens is you have to trade emotions so that you can survive. So you might
Right.
have, you go overseas, you got a job to do. You got to realize that these aren't people listening, whatever you got to do to do the job. These aren't people. This is enemies. They're gonna get you if you don't get them. So you start living that way, and what you do is you end up trading these feelings for a better feeling. So now I feel good when I accomplish this, when I get this done, no matter what the cost. So you trade those feelings out, and once you start trading feelings out for another feeling, then they're not the real feeling anymore. They're not the real emotion, right? So once you put those masks on those emotions, they will start lying. And, even when you come out of those situations, now your emotions are going to lie because they're confused. You've traded out so many emotions, you don't know which ones are real anymore. This is what I'm talking about with the bipolar and the anxiety. And you don't have a feeling to trade for the calm anymore because when you find that calm feeling, it's also lying. It's not really a calm feeling, right? So your calm is only relative short term from the extreme anxiety. This is what I'm saying. The bipolar is you're getting flooded with this 24/7 and with the anxiety and depression. So all that's going on, you can't find your way back. You've traded so many emotions, you don't know which one's real anymore. But because you're living in survival, you have to grab the strongest one and go with it. Even you don't know it's true. You don't question the hesitation, gets you killed, as it said in the military. You
Right.
grab it and you go. I can specifically, remember reading text messages and blowing up and getting into fights, and then later on, when I'm calmed down, I look at it, none of those words were in it. but I, so when you trade emotions, you trade a lot real life too. I mean, so it gets confusing, and you don't know that until you find your map back. So shadow work actually, that's why I'm tying that in. Shadow work actually, what it does is it starts mapping that way back. So you start unmasking them one at a time so you can see which one actually is and how they're manifesting and things like that. It just gives you a roadmap back. But you have to sit down and experience them because what happens is when you have a feeling, you'll be like, well, I shouldn't have that feeling, or I should be ashamed for feeling that way. I shouldn't be angry about this, but you should be. Honestly, you should be the first thing you feel. And when you are the first thing you feel, it processes correctly and it goes away. But when you have conflict with how you feel, then you create a conflict with the conflict. And then you got another conflict coming because now you're like, well, why am I conflicted about the conflict that I'm having about the emotion? You see how that,
Right.
see, when you've been trading emotions for another emotion, instead of trying to fix it, instead of trying to judge it, you just sit down and you feel it. And that's
Right.
it. And it goes away. And it goes where it should go. Don't judge it. Don't try to fix it. It is what it is. If it's a lie, then it'll fix itself once you see that it's a lie. But if you try to fix it, you're going to fix it with another lie. You don't know you're lying is the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's the basis of how I view it.
Wow. Do you find that you attract a particular type of client?
I have worked with everybody on every range. It doesn't matter. And and I think it's because HMI is big on taking notes of things. I've never took a single note on any session because I realize every session now is with a different person. Right? They're not the same
Oh,
person they were in the last session. If they are, I didn't do anything to help them. Uh, but I found that when I take this approach, I never have the same problem after 4 sessions. So I don't have the need to take notes on it. I just need to know how you feel, how you want to feel. But but yeah, I don't know. It's with regards to attracting clients, it's very difficult in Mississippi. Uh, it just is. There's no clientele here. So virtually, I have to. If I'm searching for clients, I seek out virtually. Now, the people who find me, I've gotten to where now I just let people find me that need me, and I don't search for them anymore. Uh,
Right.
I've had full caseloads, and now I just take somebody if they come. Most of the time, I don't even charge anymore. To be honest, I just
oh,
like,
wow.
Right.
yeah, I don't need the money. I have residual income, and that's just how I operate. I mean, and I don't blame people do. I mean, because you pay to go to the hospital, you pay to go. Some people can't afford to do that. I fortunately can. It's okay. If I can help you and I don't need to charge you. But I did discover something. Some people you have to charge.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, well, they don't
Yeah, so we're
believe
getting
you.
into that
Right.
because
It's too
when
good to
people
be
don't
true.
pay you, they won't go through the process a lot. And I've had this happen. And I discovered that. So I test people a little bit before I decide, hey, listen, I know you're going through a hard time. Don't worry about paying it. I don't do that with everybody. But Well, when I can, I do because, and that's not, passing judgment on people. It's just that people operate differently.
Yes. Yes,
People put value on what they're paying for sometimes,
yes.
Exactly.
and they won't go through the process, and then they'll blame you. I'm like, man, I did this on my own.
Well, it's
Yeah.
good
Right?
that you're intuitive and you can figure that out by speaking to them because that's another way that you're helping them.
Yes. And most of the time, I don't always need hypnosis. Sometimes, well, we call it conversational hypnosis. I have worked with people with PTSD and things like that, and I don't put them under. I used interrupting patterns, of course, which is basically because I've had it, I know how to trigger their PTSD. And whenever they get, what I'll do is I'll trigger it, and then I will come up with a excuse. Can you hang on just a second, brother? Hang on, man. I'll be right back. And I would do that repeatedly. And what happens is I'm installing a stop button. They don't know it, right? But every time I trip that where I know they're fixing to drift off into that PTSD part of them, I just, hey, hang on a minute, man. Let me just, and I'll come back and have a whole nother conversation, right? Because once they go into the PTSD mode, you're not. It's very hard to get them back, and I know that from my own experience. Like I said, so I'm able to do that. You can't just put anybody under, but you can have conversations with people that help. You just have to adjust the techniques. Carl Jung stuff helps me with that a little bit too, with the figuring out how to do that. Yeah.
Yes.
It's great. Well, a lot of therapists, I guess, say that they tend to attract clients or patients who are experiencing what they've experienced, what they're healing themselves from at the moment, or what they have healed themselves from. And I would guess maybe the reason that you have some difficulty attracting clientele where you are is if you're calling it hypnotherapy, that's scary to people
Mhm.
who are, because you're in the Bible Belt, right?
Right.
And people think hypnotherapy is not in the Bible. And while
Right.
the word hypnotherapy is not in the Bible, certainly, if you read any of the stories of Jesus, someone going to Jesus for healing, Jesus
Hmm.
always said, "Your faith has made you whole. You did this." And
That's right.
then he says, "And now go and sin no more, or now go and tell no one." And I believe the sin was in believing that you were ill.
Yes.
And so now you can go and you can, as long as you're not talking about it, you're not identifying yourself as that ill person, you're identifying yourself as this healed person. That's who you are.
I will tell you how I explain that to people if I work with people with Christian nature. First of all, there's a part in the Bible where it says Jesus will tell many Christians, "Depart from me, I never knew you." You know what that means, right? So in shadow work, we view nobody can give you an emotion, nobody can make you angry. They become a place for you to manifest it. You're reacting to your own energy according to that person. They're just showing you something you don't like about yourself or something you like about yourself. So what happens with religions is we tend to paint our traumas onto a deity and then turn it into what we need to facilitate that trauma, right? So we don't never really meet the deity, the spirituality where it's at. We create it so that it meets us where we're at, and that doesn't work because now we can't go anywhere. So he says, "Depart from me, I never knew you." It's because we painted ourselves onto him and fell in love with ourselves. If you're saying Jesus or Buddha or whatever you're trying to do, but we do this to people too. So in relationships, what I found as far as Carl Jung's view of it, I have discovered this to be true, especially with like even sexual relationships. Those emotions and those attractions, what's happening is the stronger they are, the more of your trauma you painted onto that person. So you hook up with this person and it's wonderful, and then one day you wake up and you realize, I did not know that person was like that, or everybody else did. Everybody else tried to tell you, but you didn't know. But what happened was you painted your trauma onto that person, fell in love with your own broken self, and when they gave it back, it hurt more. You thought it came from them. You never even knew that person. You fell in love with your brokenness that they were carrying for you, right? When they're tired of carrying it, they're going to give it back, of course. And then you're like, I don't know what happened. Like, it was great. Yeah, it was great because they were carrying your load, man. They gave it back because it wasn't theirs. That type of thing is a merging of energies. And if you're merging with your own energy, that's what you fell in love with, even though it was broken. You never fell in love with that person. So you don't just fall out of love with people. But when you paint your trauma on them, and then you feel that draw to go over there and get yourself back, and you say, "I feel that person in me," or "I find myself in that person," you're not lying. You painted yourself on that person, and you went and fell in love with yourself. You never even met that person. They're miserable with your relationship, right?
Right.
Because you never met them. And I've been married twice, so I can kind of relate to that. But that was prior to learning all of this stuff, uh, how that worked. Uh, so it works on a lot of different levels. You know, I take what I need from HMI. I take what I need from other places that I've learned things, and I just use them. Whatever works.
That's great. And I
Yeah.
think even HMI would encourage that because they taught some Ericksonian and some Carl Jung and, a variety of other, and Mesmer and a variety of other people. So I think that they would encourage you to sort of create your own language of
Yes.
hypnotherapy. And I wonder if instead of calling it hypnotherapy, if you called it guided meditation, if that would go over better with the more religious people.
It's very well, I had to put it here in Mississippi. I grew up here. It's very cliquish and cliche-ish. So if like say my sister's very popular, she's looks like Carrie Underwood, everybody. If she goes out and starts cutting grass with her scissors and says everybody's gonna do it, right? Me, on the other hand, I've always been the weird guy. I've always been Lori's brother. They only know my name. That's just Lori's brother. Yeah, he sleeps out in the field on blankets and stuff because he likes it out there. So I'm the weird guy. But but so you know, and I don't care because thing is I'm not there was a thing on what was the original Karate Kid or whatever that guy told him on the beach. He said he was fishing and he said, "Do you think the fish are biting here today?" He said I don't have to seek the fish. He said I just have to throw good bait out. Right? So yeah, that's kind of the way I view it now is to not interfere with processes. When you start seeking things, you start interfering with the process of them happening, right? So if like you're shooting a game of pool, for instance, you'll see if you've ever been out to clubs and people get really drunk and they would shoot pool and they would just run tables. When it's over, they can't make a shot because they don't care anymore. They're not interfering with the process of the ball going in the pocket. They're just uh
Having fun.
right. So yeah, when you stop interfering with processes seeking clients, to stop interfering with the process seeking a relationship, you stop interfering. Every time you check to see if that process is working yet, you've created an interference.
Mm,
So when it finds me, I just react appropriately. I don't know. I don't really seek anything anymore. Unfortunately, as I said, I've been able to buy me an RV and just go out on the road and just whatever finds me. I don't look for anything anymore. And
That's
it
good.
seems that I have gained way more. I try not to interfere with it. If I try to manifest $1 million, but I buy a lottery ticket every day, all I'm doing is confirming I don't believe I'm going to get $1 million every
mm,
time you do that. So that's an act of interfering with your process. If we say biblically again, just be still and know, or ask and you receive. You don't beg for it every day. You just say it. Okay, Amen means it is done or it is so. That's all it means.
yes, yes.
You
Yeah.
don't have to ask anymore.
All
Uh,
right. Well, when somebody wants to contact you, how do they go about doing that?
uh, Basically, you can use my email. I have a Google ad, and it's just James Haynes Hypnotherapy or hypno-relief.com. Either one. It's got my email and phone number there,
Okay, great.
so you can just
Excellent.
Google
And
it.
James, if there
Yeah.
was something you would want people to take away, what would it be? One thing that you could say to somebody to help them.
Well, there is a such thing as a process being too simple to understand, and when you understand that, everything becomes simple.
I like that. That's great.
This is not complicated, is what that means. All of this is
Right?
it's so simple. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it really
yeah.
is.
It is.
All right. Well,
Well,
thank you
thank
very
you.
much for not only for being our guest on the show, but thank you for filling in at the last minute.
Yeah,
We appreciate
problem.
it. And
Yeah,
it was so nice to speak with you.
yes, it was lovely speaking with you. And our original guest had to back out at the last minute, so thank you very much. And
Yes. Hey, it's
yes,
been great. If you need, I know lots of other hypnotherapists. If you need some recommendations that would probably like to do podcasts, things like that. So,
Mm,
yeah,
great.
I have a list of people I could send you later if you'd like.
oh, well, that's very kind of you.
Thank you.
I'm on the Facebook HMI students and graduates page, and I usually post there, and I get a lot of responses. And we have more than we need for the rest of this year, and then we have some
Okay.
spilling over into next year too. So, but thank you very much. That's very kind of you. All right.
All
So,
right.
James Haynes, certified hypnotherapist, specialist in PTSD
Yes.
and other things. Thank you so much for being on our podcast, A Better World with Julann and Fran. And please like and share this video, and please join us again next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so long for now. Oh, what happened? He left.